Gary Oldman burst onto our screens in the 1980s as part of a new wave of young British film actors. Beginning with leading roles in Sid and Nancy and Prick Up Your Ears, he proved he could excel across a dazzling range of vampires, murderers, drug dealers, musicians, police officers and spies. Some of his most famous work includes a visceral portrayal of the blood-sucking Count in Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula, the wizard Sirius Black in the Harry Potter series, the unhinged Stansfield in Leon, a wealthy industrialist set on destroying humanity in The Fifth Element, and espionage veteran George Smiley in the recent Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. From the outset, critics have praised the dramatic variety of Gary Oldman's on-screen characters. Fellow actors, including Christian Bale, Ryan Gosling and Johnny Depp, have all cited him as a major influence, and Brad Pitt has even described him as the foremost acting god. He's received acclaim behind the camera too for his directorial debut, Nil by Mouth, which was loosely based on his own upbringing. It brought him 2 BAFTA Film Awards. It's with great pleasure that we welcome Gary Oldman to BAFTA's A Life in Pictures.
And I had no dreams of being in movies. I mean, that's what those other people did. That's what Sean Connery did. That's what Michael Caine did. So I wanted to be in the theatre, and you were considered a bit of a sissy if you wanted to do that.
But you went to drama school, you went to...
But I did go to drama school, yes. Yes, I tried RADA, and it was awful, awful audition, and there was a panel of 3, and a woman who was in a sort of tweed suit with a sort of long sort of cigarette, who just sort of said, well, I would think about to consider something else to do for a living, Dan. But I didn't give up, and then I went to Rose Bruford and auditioned there, and got in and did 3 years of formal training.
And then also Royal Court in amongst.
Royal Court with Max Stafford Clark.
And then the film offers that you started to do to audition for film.
Yes, it worked that I would do a play and a film and a play and a film. I don't know where I got the energy from, because when I did Prick Up Your Ears, I was in rep at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and I had about 5 plays in my head, and I was doing Joe Orton in the day. So you would go early at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I would shoot with Stephen until 5, and then I would get in the car and go to the Barbican and try and remember what play I was in.
Do you remember what play you were in?
I did. Didn't always know what side to come on, but I did remember, yes.
Who's this? It's the police. It's one of your pickups. Your sex life has caught up with you, now you're going to have to pay.
I thought you might like a preview of my frock. It's for the firm's annual get-together in a month or 2's time. The actual venue's not definite yet, but it's thought to be one of the leading London hotels. There's been some dispute about the design. It's a floral motif, obviously, all hand-done. Only I say these are roses, and Mr. Sugden will insist they're peonies.
This could be a lily. It was more of a rhododendron to me.
That's a thought. I'll go and try that one out on Clifford. Do you notice I'm limping? Spilt a hot drink down my dress. My vagina came up like a football.
Your performance there earned a BAFTA Best Actor nomination. You may not remember that.
Yes, it did.
It
Yes, I
did.
do remember. Yes, yes.
You'd been in Joe Alton plays, presumably, had you?
I was in Entertaining Mr. Sloan. Yeah.
So you had some kind of knowledge of at least the rhythm of his writing. Did that help, do you think, in playing?
Yeah, I knew the plays. I was very familiar with it. It was something that I was, that I chased. I wanted to play Joe.
But then, of course, I mean, a lot of directors wanted to work with you then. Nicholas Roeg, Track 29. And Bram Stoker's Dracula, of course, comes pretty soon after that, when we tend to forget, because it's such a massive role that it was really relatively early on.
Yes, it was early on. Yeah. We went up to Napa, to the big Coppola, Camp Coppola we used to call it, and spent a week, really, there. The auditioning process was a week, and it was improvisations, and he would, there was lots of wine to drink. He would cook wonderful meals, and it was quite a process to get the part, and it was an extraordinary experience.
It is no laughing matter. We, Draculas, have a right to be proud. What devil or witch was ever so great as a killer whose blood flows in these veins? Blood. Is too precious a thing in these times. The warlike days are over. The victories of my great race are but a tale to be told.
Here you were going for something that was much more visceral and
romantic.
Romantic, exactly.
Yes, he wanted to make a love story. He didn't really want to make a horror movie, and that's what he did. He set out to do that, and he achieved it. If you want a masterclass in filmmaking, you need look no further than Godfather Part Two. It is brilliant storytelling. It is amazing production design. It is gorgeous cinematography, the composition, the acting, the costume, the music. It is, I think it is a work of art, and so it was great to work with this sort of master filmmaker.
We're going to move towards Tony Scott's True Romance
Yeah.
next, and the character who you play in that, who is pimp and drug dealer, Drexel Spivey. Now he's another kind of monster, isn't he? Now, when you're building up that kind of character, are you working just from what there is in the script, or do you have discussions beforehand? I mean,
Well,
how
I
much
met
do you
with
contribute?
I met with Tony, and he said, and it was at the very beginning of that of meeting for him. It was at the beginning of meeting people, and he said, "Listen, I'm really no good at explaining the story or the plot." Or he said, "Look, he's a pimp, and he said that he's white and he thinks he's black." And I said, "I'll do it." Having not read the script, it was Tarantino, and that's how it happened. So we shook hands at the Beverly Hills Hotel, at the Four Seasons Hotel in Los Angeles, and that was it. And then I went away to work on a film called Romeo's Bleeding. I finished Romeo's Bleeding on the Sunday, drove back to Los Angeles, and started Drexel on the next day. And in the meantime, I'd had dreadlocks, the wig made. I had borrowed a milky eye from one of the prop people on Dracula. I'd been to a dentist and had gold teeth made. I love the toys. I love dressing up. And I got there on the first morning, all in costume, ready to roll. And he looked at me with his cigar and he went, yeah, that's the ear, that's it, good, that's the eye, all right. You sit there, you sit there. We ran the scene and he said, right, terrific, 20 minutes, light it, we'll shoot it. So I went from Romeo's Bleeding to Drexel, you know, in a few hours. And if you look at the very, very, very last scene of Romeo's Bleeding, I've already got the... I'm already there as Drexel, because I don't say anything. I just have to walk to a sort of, I have to walk in a gas station. I just have to walk to a petrol pump. But I already had a bit of the Drexel lilt going on in the body.
He was asking about Alabama.
Where the fuck is that bitch?
She's with me.
Who the fuck are you?
I'm her husband.
Yeah. Well, that makes us practically related. You have a seat, boy. You have yourself an egg roll. We got everything here from a little eye Joe to damned if I know.
No thanks.
No thanks? What that mean? I think you're too scared to be eaten. Let's see. We're sitting down here, ready to negotiate. You've already given up your shit. I'm still a mystery to you. But I know exactly where your white ass is coming from. See, if I ask if you want some dinner, and you grab the egg roll and start to try down, I say to myself, this motherfucker, he's carrying on like he ain't got a care in the world, and who knows? Maybe he don't. Maybe this fool's such a bad motherfucker. He don't got to worry about nothing. He just sit down, watch my motherfucking TV. See? You ain't even sat down yet. And that TV over there, since you've been in the room, is a woman with her breasts is hanging out. You ain't even bothered to look. You just been clocking me. I know I'm pretty, but I ain't as pretty as a couple of titties. Ooh-wee! This shot fierce.
We were shooting Romeo in New York, and I was late one night in the Bronx, was in the trailer, and I heard a couple of kids outside walking past, and I heard this voice, and I said, that's the voice for Drexel. And so I got the kid in, I pulled him off the street, and I said, would you do me a favor? I said, would you record your voice for me? And I said, would you read these scenes, and you tell me what lines don't work? And then he read them, and he went through the script, and he went, yeah, man. He said, that don't fly. Yeah. That's bullshit, mate. You know, he was like doing all the thing. And I was changing the script, and got there, and it's crazy now, looking back and thinking, you know.
And the fact that Drexel, I mean, the thing about it's funny, that scene, but also there's that danger and that unpredictability, and the unpredictability is in so many of your characters, that sense that one never quite knows. I mean, it's one of the things that makes them so compelling.
They're outsiders. That's what makes them interesting, and that's where the drama is. Hamlet's an outsider. King Lear is an outsider. That's where the drama is, and that's who that guy is. He's from a particular neighborhood. You know, he's an outsider. He's not a villain in that sense.
But it does mean that it's precisely that kind of displacement that means that these characters, you never quite know how they're going to react in certain situations. And that's one of the things that you know, make it very uneasy to watch. And I just wondered if you had experience of that, you know, from early on, observing that in other people.
Yes, yes, I've seen it in other people. It's like the men in Nil by Mouth. I wasn't one of them, but I'm fascinated by them.
And these are, I know Nil by Mouth is not exactly your own story, but based on things that you knew.
Yes, it's somewhat autobiographical. Yeah, yeah. But those men are. They've always fascinated me, and I was always very quiet. I was always the observer.
One to go for. Well, I want to go for that one there, but I left the chippet round the side. Oh, hello.
Where'd you go?
Here. Come out for a drink with Mum, didn't I? You were sparked out on the settee. I told Mark where I was.
You coming home?
Yeah, in a bit.
I'm going home now.
Well, why don't you stay and have a drink?
No, I don't want to drink. I've had a drink. I'm going home. You coming?
Yeah, in a bit.
Well, how long are you going to be?
Well, I don't know, do I? I'm going to finish my drink.
Where's your drink? You ain't drinking your fucking drink. You're playing pool. Never fucking drink at home, come on.
No, it's over there with Mum, innit? Don't worry about it. I'll catch you up later. I'll get a cab. I've got to pick Michelle up from Nains anyway. Don't worry about it, Ray. I won't be long.
I won't tell you again. Put the fucking cue down, drink your fucking drink, and get in the cunting car now. Do as you're fucking told.
Liven up, Val. Take your shot, love.
He's fucking upset her.
Kiss me jacket, Mum.
What's the matter, love?
I don't know. He's got the lump about something, innit?
Pissed off with him, I tell you.
I'll give you a bell tomorrow, all right?
All right, darling.
See you, Paul.
Look after you. Be careful.
See you, Val.
What's the fucking matter with him, eh?
You have to do it. She's pregnant.
I know.
What's all that
Pissed off
about?
with
Yeah,
him.
a minute up there, the right pop up.
Nil by Mouth is an emotional well that I have been drawing on for years. So people say to me, how long did it take to write? And I say, it took 6 weeks, but it was 30 years in development. You know, it has to, a character, once you've got all those pieces that I was talking about, then you have to filter them through your own particular prism. They then have to, they live through you. I don't express myself with a piano or a violin. I'm, you know, the instrument. And so if you see Dracula crying, that's Gary crying. So you're drawing on all that stuff. And that's, so I've been using Nil by Mouth, in a way, that all of that, for all those years in the acting.
And it is sort of dedicated to your father.
Yeah. I mean, when it first came out, people wanted it to be more about me than it really was, and it didn't matter if I would say to them, no, it's semi-autobiographical, but these characters are sort of, this Ray is a composite of this person and that person, and the guy I knew at school, and imagination. I made him up. I made that character up, and people wanted it to be really about me more than it was, and it didn't matter what I told them. They went with they you know, we'll go with the story anyway. And that is not, Ray is not my dad in the movie, and my dad wasn't, my dad wasn't a violent man. There is a part of my dad is in the sort of speech that at the end when he talks about his dad in the chair. That's a bit of you know, that's closer to the bone there.
Nil by Mouth got Alexander Korda Award from BAFTA and also Best Screenplay.
Very proud of that.
Yes, well...
Very proud of that.
And quite rightly too. But you didn't then, I mean, did you then at that point think, I must direct more?
Yeah. And I've been, in the intervening years, I've been writing and have finished something and hope to again in the next couple of years. It's life circumstances. I had some things in my life, and then I became a single dad, and I thought, am I a dad who's going to be here and around, or am I a dad who's always going to be away on a location? And I decided to be a dad who was around. Looking at those two boys, they are my greatest accomplishment.
Guess who used this address? Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, how do we know he was here? Because this office address was stamped on the pro-Castro leaflets he was handing out in the Summer 63 down on Canal Street. Now, these are the same leaflets they found in his garage in Dallas.
What's this? What the hell is this doing on this piece of paper?
After the arrest, 544 Camp Street never appeared on the pamphlets again.
Yes.
He was arrested that day for fighting with some anti-Castro Cubans. But actually, he had contacted them a few days earlier as an ex-Marine trying to join their anti-Castro crusade. When they heard he was now pro-Castro, well, they paid him a visit.
What is this fidel shit? You lied to me, you hypocrite! Liar, you son of a bitch! People do not take this paper. This is communist propaganda.
Collins,
why you hit me? Come on, you pink of shit! You go back to Moscow, communist.
There was no real fight, and the arresting lieutenant later said he felt it was a staged incident. In jail, Oswald has a private session with Special Agent John Quigley of the FBI. Oswald is released, and Quigley destroys his notes from the interview. The arrest gets him a lot of publicity, and as a result, Oswald appears on a local TV debate.
But you are a communist, are you not?
No, Mr. Bringier. I am not a communist. I'm Marxist-Leninist.
JFK is a fascinating film because you play Lee Harvey Oswald. And we have the impression that we see quite a lot of you in the film. Though in fact, you're probably not on screen that much, are you?
I'm not on the screen very much. And there is no Oswald footage at all in the piece. Yeah. So it's all...
But you are in...
We recreated the footage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we see you, as it were, on television some of the time.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of research did you do for that? Because obviously fairly recent history, and people still alive concerned with it.
Well, obviously, you've got to get on the train with Oliver. You know, he's saying that it was a conspiracy and that Oswald wasn't the lone shooter, and you can't be in a movie and you know, and say to Oliver, you know, well, I disagree with you. I think Oswald did it. You know, so you've got to get on the idea with him. There was very little on the page, and he gave me some per diem and some airline tickets and sent me off as a researcher, as an investigator, and put me in touch with people that knew Oswald, that said they knew Oswald. And I went and put a portrait together of this man through these people. I went off to New Orleans, and I went off to Dallas, and he sent me on an investigation, really, and said, you know, put it together yourself, find out who this guy was.
And what was the most surprising thing that struck you about what they said?
Well, I met Marina, Oswald's widow, and the daughter. The thing that really surprised me was what a sort of great family man he was. and had been really, I think, really tarnished with the event, and the family had suffered. I think the family had suffered greatly, contaminated by that. So much so that they changed their name. But there was a tender side to him, and Marina and the daughter remember him just being a wonderful father. But it's an amazing story how someone in those days could go off to Russia and renounce their American citizenship, you know, and come back and slip through the net. You know, that was the story that the FBI, CIA, FBI sort of said, oh well, you know, and they were debriefing tourists who had been to Russia at that time. So here's a guy who had a military record, had worked as a radar operator at the Zugi Japanese air base with the U-2 spy plane, and goes off to Russia, marries a Russian woman, renounces his citizenship, and then is allowed back into America. Oh, but he must have slipped through the net. So there were that was the great thing about working on JFK. It was just finding out all these things about this man.
That sort of stranger than fiction element of American politics, it actually leads us into The Contender quite well, because The Contender is a film which is not about any actual US president or vice president, but very much deals with things that were around the time of Clinton and Monica Gate.
And sex scandals.
Sex scandals. Yeah. And I think Jeff Bridges, who plays the president, I saw when asked whether it was a veiled reference to Monica Gate, it said veiled. I don't see anything veiled about it. And you play, well, the basic setup is that Jeff Bridges is the president and he needs to get, for various reasons, a new vice president. Yeah. And they nominate a woman, played by Jane Allen. And you are he's Democratic president, and you are the Republican chair of the committee that must confirm this woman.
Yes.
After an investigation.
Yes.
But you don't want her there.
No. No, the character just believes that she is not the right person for the job. It's as simple as that. And he says this, I've got nothing against the fact that it's not because she's a woman. I just happen to believe that for America, she is not. She's not on my ticket. She's not the nominee for me. And a sex scandal thing kind of bubbles up, and as all politicians, Republican or Democrat, you use what is you.
You just throw whatever you can at them.
Yeah, you play, you play a little dirty.
Have you seen this?
That's my file on you, Senator.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get it?
Have you read it yet?
How did you get it? Have you read it?
What do you have to say for yourself?
With all due respect, Madam Senator, it doesn't matter what I have to say for myself.
Oh, it doesn't? Well, it seems to me, Mr. Chairman, that all you can claim about me, is that I had sex while
Deviant sex.
Oh, who deviant? Who says it was deviant?
I do. And what I say, the American people will believe. And you know why? Because I'll have a very big microphone in front of me.
Wow, you must really hate me, Shelley.
No, I don't hate you. There's no possible hate of you. You're, how was it that Reynolds called you the other day? Groovy. You're a groovy chick. You know, what I do detest is your selfishness.
I have served this nation without regard for personal income for over 10 years, Mr. Runyon. I don't
because you want to take on a job that positions you to assume a mantle of gigantic responsibility, and you do it full well with the knowledge.
Of what? What?
Greatness is the orphan of urgency, Lane. Greatness only emerges when we need it most in times of war or calamity. Now, I can't ask somebody to be a Kennedy or a Lincoln. They were men created by their times. What I can ask for is the promise of greatness. And that, Madam Senator, you don't have.
I mean, the fact that that was not just a film about politics, but actually a film that did have a sort of political message. I mean, a subtle one, but one about that was important, was it? Because you were executive producer credited.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, with Doug and the SC8 group. So it was our company that sort of that found it. Yeah, and nursed it along to get financing. Yeah, great experience and a wonderful cast.
The point that we've been getting to all the way through, and in a sense it does fall from The Contender too, which is something with a political undertone. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy is going to fall right into that, isn't it? Because actually the thing that is surprising watching it now is how relevant it seems still to today, even though it's clearly a period piece. Were you surprised at all when you heard that there was to be a film of it?
No, I wasn't surprised that they were making the movie. I was surprised that they were thinking of me for Smiley. Yeah. From, I guess, just from the book, and I remember the series. I remember it very well. Well, I was also being a fan of Alec Guinness. It's something that you would remember it, you know. And then I heard that they were actually that Thomas was casting it younger. But I wasn't. No, I wasn't surprised. I'm surprised it's not been done before.
But since you were familiar with the Alec Guinness thing and had seen it, you know, when you were young, that was always going to be inside you somewhere because you'd seen it. You can't get rid of that. How did you decide that you were going to deal with the fact that there was already this very well-known interpretation?
I approached it much the same way you would a classical role. That if you're asked to play Hamlet, you've got all the ones that went before.
But that's all the ones. This is just one.
This is the one.
It's just the one.
I mean, his interpretation of Smiley was very much loved, and the ghost of it was there. But it's a fire that you have to walk through. Really, I couldn't give up the opportunity. To play in, and Thomas said, I never went back to the TV series. I mean, I never rewatched it or anything, but I don't remember it so vividly that I wasn't that contaminated with it, you know. But I know for other people. Who are old enough to remember the series, it was one of those things that you would adjust your social calendar. You know, whatever you were going to be doing, you would change it because you knew that 1 hour a week you would be fixed to the TV watching Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. So I knew that it didn't matter so much to me, but to other people that his Smiley was very loved, and people saw him as Smiley, and that was a challenge, but ultimately not something that got in the way. There is a coldness to George, and there is a meanness there that I think that we play. But Guinness was a little more huggable. He would have been a man that was in active service. He was out there in the field as an operative, and would have been. He knows how to handle a gun. He probably shot one, fired one. So
And he knows that a little torture under the right circumstances.
A little torture.
A little torture.
Under the right circumstances.
I want to talk about loyalty, Toby. Control recruited you, didn't he? Found you starving in a museum in Vienna. A wanted man. Saved your life, I heard. And yet when the time came, when it came to picking sides between him and Alaline, you didn't hesitate. That's understandable, perhaps, with your war experience. You survived this long, I suppose, because of your ability to change sides. Serve any master.
What's this about, George?
It's about which master you've been serving, Toby.
It's a beautiful thing, the voice. Is that, was it just Le Carre or other elements too?
John Le Carre, he has this sort of voice, but it's like music. When he talks and he says, oh yes, and he's got a slight lisp, which I thought would be a bit too much for 2 hours. I thought it would be a bit, you know, there are certain, you know, if you heard Joe Orton speak, oh heavens. And so I had access to the radio, some radio interviews, and I thought I'd already received the sort of idea from Thomas of Graham Greene and already on that road. And I thought, and then you know, you think, what does a character sound like? How does he move? Or, and a lot of it is in the book. From the writing, there's certain cadences, there's rhythms that you find, and there is, to me, there is a musicality in Smiley when he says, "Is there anything in particular you want me to pass on to Anne?" You know, it has a sort of lovely sort of rhythm. Music to it, and so we met. We had Le Carre as a resource, you know, if we needed him, and we met John. And I heard I'd had these radio interviews, and I met him, and sort of like you do as an actor, like I do, you know, I took my picture, you know, and looked at the mannerisms and the way he sort of touched his shirt, sat in the chair, and you think I could use that or I could use that. But it was, who is the guy, who's the voice? And then I thought, well, he's the DNA. He is he is the sparks and the minerals. He's the cells of this. And so that was a springboard. And for all I know, Guinness may have done the same. But Le Carre took Guinness out to meet a spy. But they went to lunch, and of course Guinness was sort of looking at the guy, and he was looking at the watch, thinking it pulled out, and it was a thing you could garrote, you know, and he's looking at the buttonhole and the tie pin and all of this. And then finally they had their lunch, and the guy put his hat on and walked up the street with his umbrella like that. And Guinness turned to John Le Carre and he said, "Is that a real umbrella?" Because he thought it was a thing that you shoot, that the umbrella was the thing that you shoot darts with. And John Le Carre said, "Of course it's a real umbrella."
Gary Oldman, thank you very much indeed for your life in fiction.
I'm thrilled, thank you.